Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Flow with Jessica and Spiritual CFO. Today, we're going to be deep diving into what Robin does and how she helps businesses.
Hello. It's funny. We were chatting about this on one of the earlier episodes, how things kind of shift in our healing and like what we're offering. And I had this realization yesterday when I was talking to a client. I am just genuinely pissed off. Like I'm pissed off, passionate, we'll call it whatever I want to. The amount of healers and right whatever that falls under, right? If you're a therapist, if you're a psychic, if you're a energy worker, all of the things, I'm just genuinely mad that so many of us struggle with money and charging enough to like, I hate that. Well, I don't hate it, but like the whole charging your worth thing, I mean, you can't really put your worth on a dollar amount. It's more about charging what you desire to meet your needs, right? Because you're not benefiting anybody if you're not charging enough to make sure you have food and a roof over your head. So I've just continued to like tighten up and kind of expand what it is that I'm helping business owners with, because it's around money and also business, right? Because those seem to be kind of interchangeable when you are a spiritual entrepreneur. Um, and right, I got here because I struggled so much with my journey to being a spiritual healer. I have a background in finance and did accounting and, in the finance field for 20 years until I left my corporate job 2 years ago to focus on my business. And it brought up so much karmic healing for me around self-worth and money wounds that I had, and just really started to open my eyes to this bigger collective energy that so many of us are breaking through, because it really is, it's a collective pattern that a lot of us have signed up to transform and to shift. So it is something I'm very passionate about. The other thing I thought about is the fact that my North Node in my chart. So your North Node is like what you're headed to in this lifetime. It's what your soul wants to focus on. My North Node is in Virgo, right? Accounting, no surprise. Like Virgo wants everything nice and neat, orderly. And it's in my eighth house of like, which can be an obsessive house and also around money and other people's money. So I'm like, oh, it's perfect. Like I'm obsessed with helping people with money in their business. So it helps to have those realizations about like, why do I get so fired up about this healer, like not being able to make enough money in her business, or, discounting herself or limiting herself. It's quite interesting to see where these passions come from. So yeah, thank you for allowing me to share. I'm very excited.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I've already had a session with Robin, and I will tell you that it is like no other business coaching session you will have. So check her out, Spiritual CFO, on all the different things, and she'll tell us about her website too. It's amazing, and it is healing, and it is, I am somebody who doesn't like very linear, so it is not linear. It kind of goes around, even to the point where she's like, I feel like there's something in your space that is holding you back. So what is going on to the right of you? And I was like, here's a big area of papers and boxes, and that totally makes sense. So the ability to intuitively tap into not only what's going on in your business and your space and in your beliefs and helping to shift that, like it's not the usual. And because it's not the usual, it's so meaningful and helpful and transformative. So tell us a little bit about, what are some of the things that you do in sessions? Like, I don't know, tell us more about that.
Okay, so I'll actually kind of start from a little bit in the past, just because I feel like it helps to give context. So, right, I started out the first part of my life being very like linear and very, just black and white, having the accounting brain. And I had a lot of ideas about the way that money should look and my credit and just all of the things. And then when my life exploded, a decade ago, I found spirituality kind of, it wasn't by accident, but it was a world that I didn't know anything about. So I started taking all of these courses. I started learning all of these things and really opening myself up to energy work and astrology and just all of these different modalities, hypnotherapy, somatic release, just a lot of different modalities and courses that I took to expand my knowledge. So the two sides of me kind of felt separate for a while. Um, and then, like I said, I started my own business, and I just, in my own life, and then also in clients' life, I would see people that energetically they had everything in the making, right? In their astrology chart, in their energy to be like very successful, to have a lot of abundance, but it wasn't happening in the physical for them. And I just like, I'm a person who gets very curious about things and I like to kind of dive deep. So one of my gifts that I have is that I'm able to tune into that subconscious level. So, right, even if somebody is sitting here telling me, "Oh, yes, I want to do this. I want to have my own business. I want to do this thing." In their subconscious is actually saying, "That's not safe to do that. It's not safe to be seen. You can't make money doing what you love. People are going to be jealous of you." Like I was able to see all of that subconscious crap that was holding them back. And right, because I've been trained in all of the different modalities, I combined my natural gifts along with these practical tools that I had learned in both spirituality and in finance. And I was able to really get into those energetic patterns, the karmic wounds, to shift those things first, right? To give people a good foundation in shifting those beliefs and shifting. I also do a lot of inner child work, which is weird. Like you wouldn't think that that would go along with money stuff. But what happens the first 7 years, and even before that, I believe, like when you're in utero, when you're in the womb, your energy is so open that you're taking in everything from your external environment, right? Your mom is saying there's not enough. She's saying it verbally, she's saying it energetically. This was something that came through like very strongly in my healing was like I was one of 6 children and there wasn't enough when I was a child. Like I couldn't have needs, I couldn't have desires because there just was not enough. There was not enough to go around. So I internalized that as my reality of the world, right? Because when you're in that space, you're just taking in everything. You're 2 years old. You don't have the awareness to say, "Oh, that's not true. You know, I'm an abundant being. I have all the things I need." So, and I don't know why we're wired less like this. Talk to the big guy. Talk to the universe, right? But we have this phase where we just allow all these things in, and then we kind of spend the rest of our lives undoing them and learning new ways of being. So in the inner child work, we actually go back to that core wound and we energetically rewire it. So we give people the opportunity to go back and to be in a different energetic space, to be more empowered, to feel the feelings that they couldn't feel when they were 2 years old. To have that safe moment and to really feel supported so that we can shift the energy moving forward. So that's just an example, but it's a lot of kind of woo-woo work and subconscious and energy work that's very intuitively driven. And then we take a look at the practical. Then we say, okay, we've healed this stuff. Here's your homework. Here's how you can embody it. And then also, what do you need to do in the physical, right? Because I would like to live in a world where I can just say, "Oh, my business is going to make $500,000 in 5 days just because I wanted to," but we're not there yet. So we say, okay, what is your game plan for getting there, right? What are your goals? What is your game plan for actually getting to those goals? So I love being able to combine both sides of it, and I have found it's really supportive for clients to have that space and to have both sides of it. And not to toot my own horn, as my sister says, toot toot motherfucker, but um, there's not a lot of business coaches or money coaches that address both sides of it. I think there are more that are kind of coming out at this point because people have seen the need for it. But there is, sometimes there can be that avoidance or that like people aren't even aware of it, right? If it's subconscious, you're not even aware that you're walking around with all of these things. So you're in the physical and you're like, "Oh, I'm not doing something right. I'm not working hard enough. This is why my goals aren't coming to fruition." But really it's some little wiring that just kind of needs to be tweaked in your subconscious. So I love that I'm able to identify that for people. And the other thing that I love being able to do and that I love like holding the space for this is when I'm tuning into somebody's field or the field of their business, I'm able to see what things will look like for them in the future. It's really amazing, like, to hold that space and to be able to see, all right, they're going to make these changes And right, it's not so linear because the world is happening around us, but to be able to see that higher vision of like where they could be is also really powerful, because I believe it just takes one person holding that image for it to give, energy and, just kind of watering the seed a little bit for it to kind of bloom on the physical. So yeah, sorry I threw up all over you, but I get
Yeah.
excited, right? Can you tell I'm excited about the
No, it's
money
wonderful.
stuff?
It's what you do. It's what you're passionate about. And that's the whole point, right? We all want to be able to make money and feel secure and safe in doing what we love, because then it doesn't feel like work. We're just expressing our passion. And that's, how spirit moves through us, is we're expressing our passion. And I think one of the greatest things is to truly hold the vision of what it can look like for somebody with them. And it's all about transmitting that energy, right? If we can tap into what that energy feels like, then we can hold that on our own. So it's a beautiful gift to give. Of all the realities that are out there, we're energizing the one that shows that they're succeeding and partnering with them to move in that direction. So it's a beautiful gift to be held. And, for me, I have done a lot of work. I have done a lot of work on myself and looked at a lot of different areas. And, even a part of the program I took for galactic astrology, they talked about limiting beliefs. So I did a lot of work even before I started doing this as a business. And even still, you were able to help find things like that took my breath away. Like I remember sitting in there having a conversation, and all of a sudden a memory came from one of my teachers where, it kind of crushed my dream at that moment. And that had caused a little hitch in how I was moving forward. So it's amazing. Like, it's like, well, what can Robin do? Well, Robin can help you tap into those areas that still exist. Even if you've done a lot of work, it doesn't take a lot to get you moving in the right direction. It also doesn't take a lot to kind of get you stuck, especially if there's a lot of emotion around that moment. So being able to come into contact with that and then being held while you move through it and have somebody walk you through that, it can shift everything and move you from I'm afraid to be seen and heard to I just did, 5 YouTube shorts or whatever it may be. So I would say, one of the other interesting things I'd like you to talk about is not only do you do all of this healing work, but you also sit down and set achievable goals for the next day, week, month, and then even doing those follow-ups. So not just doing the, big healing, but doing a follow-up on a monthly basis to check in about where are we at with those goals and what is preventing us from being able to reach some of them.
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges that I've seen people have, and myself included, right, as healers, we tend to be givers. It can be hard for us to receive. So I have found that just offering that support to people and just being their cheerleader and saying, "Hey, check in with me." And I'm genuinely interested. I want to hear how the homework's going. Like I want to see, how the things that people are doing in the physical is affecting their goals and like affecting what they desire, because right, we are these energetic beings, but we live on this physical plane. So to make those changes or to create the things that we want, we have to take action. We can do all the energy healing in the world, but if you're not taking those strategic steps in the physical, you're not going to build that desire that you have for yourself, right? Tony Robbins didn't get to where he is just by like meditating and saying, "Oh, I'm going to own," I don't even know. He owns like over 100 companies that are like, uber successful. He didn't get to that point by just manifesting it. And I think that can be something else, right? That I am so gifted in the practical, because in the spiritual community, we hear a lot of like, it's almost like this avoidance of what is. It's this avoidance of what reality is, because we just want to be like up in the ethers. But it's important to have that balance. It's important to have the balance of the feminine kind of intuitive subconscious energy along with, okay, here's my masculine energy. How am I going to bring this to fruition in the physical, right? Obviously your angels and your guides are helping you, but also we have to take those proactive steps in the physical, and it's all channeled. Like, I mean, some of it's coming from me and like things that I brainstorm, but I really am just channeling spirit. And I get excited. I'm like a little kid when I channel homework for somebody and it's like, it's very creative and cool. I'm like, oh, this is really exciting. So I'm always I'm always very happy when people, and I feel like most of my clients are like that. They want to do the homework, they want to have that support, they want to, I, right. Wouldn't you say that a lot of us, I'm this way. Like I get more frustrated if I feel like I don't have a plan and if I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. It's hard to like for a long time I struggled with that in my business where I'm like, what am I actually doing today? Like what am I actually supposed to be doing? I feel like a fart kind of floating in the wind. Like I needed, those like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And obviously still being in the flow and like still, trusting if you're meant to be intuitively kind of shifting with something, but also having those practical steps is, I feel like that's very supportive for my clients. It's been supportive for me to have that. Yeah, it's something that I feel like is necessary. And I feel like a lot of times we don't necessarily talk about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, being somebody who's, starting out doing all this myself, it can be overwhelming with knowing where to start. And, I, what is the next best step? What is the next step in my alignment? And, is it, for me, it's always a question of, is it that I don't want to do this and there's something that I need to work on around that, or that it's not the right timing? So it's like, what direction do I need to go in? What am I healing? And being able to kind of have that, written out, having those next steps, and then working with you on them. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe the resistance was there was something else that would be better to do. Or maybe the resistance is that there's actually resistance and there's something coming up to be healed. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what's helped navigate this, especially when you're working with somebody who's spiritual, is they can help you navigate that. Like, what is the next best step and what is in the way of moving forward? Is it healing? Is it motivation? Is it lack of awareness or knowledge? Like, do I need to
Yeah.
go learn something so I can feel more comfortable doing this thing? And
Yeah.
that's like the tricky thing, is being able to like, what direction? And I love the creative ideas. So I was like, I really want to reach out to my customers and do what, is meaningful for them. And you said, well, tap into the energy of your customers and write them a letter. So that's one of the other things, is like these creative solutions, these non-linear solutions to help us get to where we want. It's about you helping us tap into where our energy is moving, where our customers are moving, and what the next best step is. So it's not like, okay, this, I've listened to a lot of business stuff and it's like, do these three things and then do these five things and then do these three things. And by the time you're done watching the video, you're completely overwhelmed. It's like, no, this is for you. And here's some creative, fun ways to do it. So it's not like, oh, I've got to do,
Mm.
this. It's like, oh, this is fun. Like I get to write a letter. I get to go do these different fun things that help me get into the energy, into that creativity and the flow of my business. And then once again, we're moving into that spaciousness and flow. Instead of work, it's play. And
Yeah.
our clients can feel that. People can feel that when we're moving in flow and we're in play and we have that
Yeah.
creativity.
Yeah, because let's face it, when you first start out in business, most of the time you're doing everything by yourself. You're the accountant, you're the marketer, you're everything. It's like there's no, I wouldn't, I mean, maybe there's somebody out there in the world, but I would say the number of us who enjoy doing all of the things in our business, might be pretty slim. Like yeah, I used to have an accounting background. I don't even necessarily like doing the accounting so much anymore. Um, so I think that's the other reason I love being able to like intuitively tap into, okay, these are the things, and also to like give them order, like knock this one down first, then go to this one. And again, like it is just very intuitively guided for me, which I really love because I'm an overthinker, y'all. Like I'm a Gemini. I struggle with this in my own life, right? Like I need support. I need that, that pushing, like, well, is this something I'm resistant against because it's not in alignment or because like it's pushing up against something that's triggering me? So I have to do work with this all of the time. Like I'm sharing with people the same things that I'm struggling with at some point, or I have struggled with at some point. So, which is actually another thing that I want to share that continues to come through so strongly is so many of us healers, and right, like I use that word like just very umbrella. a lot of us struggle with imposter, right? It's like, oh, I need to, I can't do my energy work right now because I need to be level 2 Reiki. Why not? I only, like my mentor that I studied under, he had a different system. It wasn't called Reiki. I'm only level 1 on Reiki. Like, okay, do I need to, right? Like, do I need more certifications? You might, but you can also start practicing. Like, you can start putting yourself out there. So I feel like that's another big one is like just having that support and giving people suggestions like, hey, start doing this, start putting yourself out of that comfort zone and really be where you're at right now because you're going to continue to grow and you're going to continue to expand and evolve. And, we Jessica and I were chatting about it maybe on episode 1 where she was sharing that, she used to be a massage therapist and now she does the galactic astrology and other things like instead of being so attached to like it has to be this one modality, allow yourself to evolve and to grow and to expand. Which is actually another thing I love to support people in is like when they are in those transition phases and they're kind of moving from, one way in their business or starting out their business. It feels, I like having that, right, those projects. It feels like very satisfying to feel like, okay, here's a project that we're working on, like let's see it to fruition. Because I feel like we need support with those things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's where it's like go where your spark, your inspiration is. And sometimes for me, it's 5 different things, and other times it's one. So, and don't put any rules on it. Allow that inner child to play and be free and be creative and inspired and bring that into what you do in your day to day. And if you end up with a million certifications, great. And you end up with none, great. The energies coming through right now are so strong. We are
Mm-hmm.
being activated on a daily basis. And our soul is limited by this 3D body in some ways, but it's also activating this 3D body. So we are becoming activated. People are waking up and they're, channeling and healing and all of this. And nobody gave them a certificate for that. So don't feel like you need external validation. And I will tell you, I've got all kinds of certificates and degrees and certifications and licenses. Like I have all of that stuff. And what comes through right now, if you're like, well, what session are we going to have? You can tell me what you would like, but I can also just come up with all kinds of stuff because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much that's being activated in me every single day. So validate yourself. And that's part of this like journey of self exploration. If it makes you excited, then do it. And when you're not excited by it anymore, then stop. And also
Mm-hmm.
look into that. There are those nuances of, am I triggered? Is there a blockage that I don't want to deal with? No, if we're standing in our integrity and we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with our stuff and we're asking for help when we need to, then when we're in flow, great. And if it's not flowing anymore, what is? Like, I
Yeah.
don't mind just setting something down and starting something new if it's exciting. Like, oh, I'm going to go this direction. Well, what about that thing? It may come back online or it may not, but I am following my flow, and being honest and true to myself in that way has allowed me to feel buoyed up and supported and excited.
Yeah. What's funny is that even though I had the background in finance, I have an MBA, like same thing, I have all the certifications, because some of us are just nerdy like that. I'll own it. I, it was so hard for me to come out as being a money coach or a money guide or whatever you want to call it because I had to heal so much of that I felt like such a fraud. And I felt like, oh my God, the universe keeps pushing me in this direction. Like I would have readings with people and they're like, you're meant to help people with money. And I'm like, well, how the hell am I going to help people with money? Like when my financial situation, like when I quit my corporate job, I went through a period of like really challenging. I mean, it brought up so much stuff in me. I really had no idea, right? Because when you're on this journey, you feel like, oh, I've done so much work. Like,
Yeah.
so when it opens that next chapter, you're like, where did all that come from? So for me, it was tied up in my Chiron. It was tied up in my childhood. It was tied up in my self-worth and just so many things. But it's like you have to heal, right? The wounded healer. You have to heal those things within yourself to be able to help other people with them. And it tends to be an area that you're so passionate about and that you're so excited about that you can't not go there. Like, and the universe wouldn't let me, right? Like I kept trying to kind of avoid it. I didn't want to call myself a money or a business coach. So even that was a process. Like I remember I had the download because the name of my business is Shed Some Light on It. And my website is shedsomelightonit.net. That was the name of my business and like my social media stuff. And when I went to a retreat a couple years ago, I had the download to change it to spiritual CFO. And I was like, oh my God, like, is that okay? I had all these feelings about it, but the spirit was like, yes, that's what you're moving towards. So it's been kind of a gradual process. It's funny that at this stage in my life and just where I am right now, it feels so aligned for me to be doing this work. But also like I'm not going to lie, it's scary sometimes too. It's scary to because money is it's such a taboo topic sometimes. There's so much shame around it. There's so much embarrassment. There's so much guilt. Like there's so many, if you think about it, right? It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper, right? Like if the zombie apocalypse was happening and like all the stores are closed and all the machines are down, it's a piece of paper that you can wipe your ass with. Like, so the fact that we have such feelings towards it and such energy wrapped up it's mind blowing to me. Like it's insane the level of healing and wounding and like all of the things that there can be wrapped around money. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned two hot topics, worthiness and money. And then we even bring in, failure. Like, is it safe to fail and the shame around that? So there's so many things that are wrapped into it where we can feel so on fire and excited about sharing and engaging. And then all of this stuff comes up. And, when it's it's not easy to have our personal, problems, but when they're affecting whether or not we make money, it's just like compounding. So it's beautiful to have somebody help us navigate through this and, where is a place of growth? Where is a place that we can remove a barrier? Where can we increase our capacity? And then also, those ideas around trust and surrender.
Mm. Yeah, that's been such a big one for me. Like I can't remember at what point we were chatting about this, but um learning to surrender and to align to God's plan, whatever you want to call it, the universe's plan. It's been a real process for me. I was such a controlling person that I feel like the universe had to like just beat me over the head over and over again to kind of get out of that. I had to be kind of flapped around by life to be able to be more fluid and to be more soft. I was like so rigid and so set in my ways and like things have to be this way and they have to be, just a certain path. And I'll share with you, like it's kind of a lot to go in today, but I've had these really drastic shifting points in my own financial reality over the last, let's see, like maybe 15 years. I can't do math right now, which is ironic, right? Let's see. Just probably my whole life, honestly, because I do have that theme of the eighth house and the north node and like wanting me to kind of go there even when I didn't want to. I've had just so many iterations of money and how I perceive money and what it means to me because that's a big part of it too is like when I started tapping into, well, how do I think about money and how does money think about me? That's an interesting exercise to write about. So you can write a letter to money and tell it all the ways that you feel about it and then let money write a letter to you, right? So when I first started doing this work, money was like, I can tell that you love me, but you also hate me. So it's like, it's confusing. It's like, I don't know if you want me to come or go, and it might sound silly, but right, once you start to write it, a lot of us have those very um, kind of back and forth feelings around money. Like it creates so much joy, but it also creates a lot of stress and pain, or it can, depending on where you are. Um, Yeah, it's just a fascinating, like I don't have the background in psychology or but I've been fascinated by what makes us tick and like where we kind of get these patterns from. So it's which right is eighth house is also like past life energy as well, right? Like kind of karmic.
It can be. I mean, it's a lot about death and rebirth, constantly feeling that transformational cycle around money.
Mhm.
So it's on top, right? It's not necessarily our stuff, but it's a
Mm,
broader view. It's the 2-8, and you've got that in your north node, south node access. So it's like my money, valuing my money, but helping people value their money and dealing with all the stuff around what that looks like and
yeah.
shifting it for the broader consciousness, not just for ourselves.
Yeah, so a really big turning point for me is, and I fought this like so hard, I did not want to sit with ayahuasca, but when I quit my corporate job, one of the things that came like right after that was to sit with Mother Ayahuasca. And I mean, she helped me so much to see it at that higher level, like the energy around money, the energy around self-worth and how it kind of ties in. And I'm still learning. I feel like I'm always going to be learning, but to have that connection of it's almost like she took me and she unplugged me from the matrix energy of money and plugged me into source. And like, no, 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 this is where your worth comes from. This is where your value and your abundance comes from. It's not from these physical things. It's not from this job that you think is, because right, a job can fire you tomorrow. Like we put so much stock in, oh, my job is the source of my income. Not really. Your job could, right, they could close tomorrow, they could fire you. There's so many things that could happen. Your real source is with source. It's with that higher energy of like I'm here. And I mean it is also a lot of surrender too, right? Because it's saying I'm trusting that no matter what happens on my financial journey, that it's led by something higher than myself, right? Even if I find myself not able to pay my mortgage or I find myself having to ask a friend for food to eat. There was at one point where it was very humbling for me because I was a person I did not ask for help. I did nope, I can do it all myself. I'm so independent. But in hindsight, the universe lovingly guided me towards that low point so I could ask for help, so I could be humbled and to see how loved I am, to see how supported I am. Um, so that was also like a really pivotal point of my journey that was very challenging for me. It really was hard for me. It was hard to be in that space of asking for and receiving assistance, which is, it's very interesting. A lot of us struggle with that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that's kind of the point of surrendering, to realize how much you don't have to do on your own, how supported you are, and that it's not as hard as we think it is. And that's kind of been my journey for this year is ease, no pressure. Like things can be gentler, and
Mm-hmm.
gentle is more healing. Gentle moves us. So just stepping back from, the aggression of this society and the hard and it's just so hard, and just falling into that gentleness of that feminine and seeing how it can move us around in these ways that don't have to make sense, but still through surrendering, we can feel supported and nourished and nurtured and end up with something beautiful. And that's, what I realize with my business is when I'm hard on myself, I'm not showing up in the best place. But when I can just kind of ease into the flow of it, I'm like, oh, okay, this doesn't have to be hard. Universe, help show me how this can be easy. And I've
Yeah.
got everything. Oh, I wanted to do this all this week. Well, I got it done today. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's just like freedom and flowing beget more freedom and flowing. So that's why I'm such a big fan of surrender, because it just allows me to do things easier. It allows things
Yeah.
to be easier, and that kind of shifts me out of like the matrix, out of that thought form bubble around our culture. Is like, oh, I can just kind of ease into this and I can be happy about the work I do and I can find fun and play in it. And then it's like, oh, I'm getting to think of my own, like I get to be sovereign in this. And I don't want to buy into this, grind hard, aggressive, all of that.
Yeah, something you were saying with the ease. It's funny because, right, if you're listening, you might be, well, like, of course everybody wants ease, but as much as we say that, there's such an energy of like self-sabotage that goes along with
Yeah.
money and success. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in clients' lives. It's like once we start to have a little bit of momentum, right? So again, we go back to like the limiting beliefs, like, oh, it's actually, it doesn't feel safe for me to be successful, right? It doesn't feel safe for me to have all this money or to be, because people, right? People, there are probably going to be people in the world who are throwing shade on you because you're successful or because you're doing well. I don't think they mean to, right? It's just our patterning around it. But we can continue to limit ourselves because we're like, oh, I don't want to be up there. I don't want to be financially successful where other people can see me and where they can throw that energy at. This is all happening on a very subtle, like subconscious level. But we will self-sabotage ourselves, right? We won't do the thing that we know that we need to in our business, which is why I love to give people, a gentle, like little kick in their ass, like, hey, I'm here to support you. Like, what can we do to get you over this hump? Because so often that's all we need. Like, we just need that person to support us and to show us, okay, there is a way through this. There is a way to overcome this. And I do believe, right, because of the work that we're doing, I believe that the universe wants us to be supported. Like, I don't think you can be a healer anymore and be like healers were at some point in our reality, right? Like, you can't be burned out and be holding space for people. I don't know about y'all, but I've had sessions with people where I could tell, like, so for I won't, of course, I'm not going to mention the person's name, and I'm going to keep this like very anonymous. So I worked with a healer, and I had never had this happen with a healer before, and I could not understand it. But I would have a session with her, and then I was like, either the day of, it was like very shortly after the session, I would have this huge like meltdown. And I was like, what's happening here? Like, I was so curious because I'm like, I've never had this happen when I was working with a coach. So I became curious about it. And then I had a session with her and we were talking. And all of a sudden, I guess I saw it. Sometimes you just see things very clearly. And also, based on what she was telling me, what she was doing, right? And this is no judgment against her. Like, I'm sure we've all done this at some point because we didn't know any better. She was trying to process my emotions for me instead of allowing myself to do it, my guides to do it, the safe space to do it, right? All the things that we learn as healers. So it was like overloading her system. And then she was like throwing it back to me.
Mm.
That was her way of like, and it dawned on me with like something that she said. And I was like, oh, this isn't like, I'm here so I can learn this, so I can see like how this cycle can continue to happen. But it was so eye-opening for me because there's so many healers, right? Like, I think we all kind of tend to go through a phase where we learn that sovereignty and where we learn that balance of, oh, I have to make sure that my own needs are met. I have to make sure that my cup is filled before I can hold space for anybody else and help them, to do it. Because, we shared like some of the things that we're seeing and that we're talking to people about are like things that they've never shared with another person. Like, I can't tell you the number of times, right? And myself and probably you as well, you hear like, I've never told anybody else this. I like, people have to have that safe space to be able to process these things. And if I'm going to take that energy and kind of toss it back onto them, I'm not doing anybody any good. So it is such a journey of like self-empowerment and of learning to, which is the other thing, I end up helping people with, because again, like I've struggled with it, is helping them to have, good routines around their energy and making sure that they're taking care of themselves and like teaching them about energetic boundaries. And again, all the things I had to learn about, like there's so much that goes into it. Y'all, sometimes being a healer isn't like as glamorous as you think it is.
Well, and I think the other thing too is just the mindset around it, right? Like, I'm not here to heal anyone. I'm here to hold space so that they can heal. And when we understand that this is it's a, participatory activity. So long gone are the days of I'm going to heal somebody else. I'm going to give my energy so that it can support somebody else. That's not what's happening. two
Yeah.
people are showing up, and because of that energetic communion, shifts can happen.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, we don't need anybody outside of ourselves. So that's the biggest thing. We don't need anybody outside of ourselves to heal. And it is great to have the support from somebody to hold space for us to shift and heal. We're doing the healing though. So I show up, I hold space, and whatever happens for that person happens for that person,
Yeah.
but it is based on what they're ready for. I don't push. So whenever I feel like I'm pushing or I'm doing, I'm going too far, I pull back. We cannot overwork our clients. You know what I mean? It is their work to do, and we're there to support them. And when we
Yeah.
understand it's their journey, then however far they get, like maybe it doesn't seem like anything happened during that session, but that's not for us to judge. And even
Mhm.
if they sit with it and think, oh, well, maybe nothing happened, what happens over the next days, the next weeks? Like, how does that shift? So
Yeah.
I don't overwork. I'm right there with them. I meet them where they are. And if they choose to shift, then I can shift with them, but I'm not running ahead of my clients. I'm not
Yeah.
doing work for them. It's who am I to say that I can heal them, right? It is theirs. It is their journey. And I'm not going to take those lessons away from them because it doesn't help them and it just helps me incur the karma. So
Yeah.
just being really clear about where we are, like we're moving away from hierarchy. We're moving to heterarchy. Everybody's on the same level. And it can be really helpful and important to have somebody support us towards gaining our own sovereignty. And that sometimes is the best lesson for somebody like, nope, I'm not going to heal you. I'm going to be here while you heal yourself. Like, I'm going to help you return to your own sovereignty and awareness of your own abilities. And
Yeah.
like, that's how people get really messed up when they're willing to take on other people's stuff and other people's energy. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not
Mhm.
doing that.
I mean, I wouldn't you agree? Well, I'm not maybe I'm going to word it like that. I'm curious if you agree with this that hi Abby. Allie also likes to help me when I'm doing sessions. A good helper. Oh my God, she really is like this dog cracks me up when yeah. So anyway, yes, I know. Tell all the people you also get some love from Allie with every session. um, I feel like whether I'm doing my own healing work or if I'm holding space from somebody, I learned so much. Like I learned so much in holding space for other people and in guiding them. You're right, the word guide, like we've
I
talked
love
about
it.
this. I feel like guide is can be such a you know, a powerful space to be instead of feeling like you're healing anybody. Yeah, but it, the amount of things that you can learn in both arenas, like both in healing your own trauma and then also holding space for people is it's magical. Like it really is just a beautiful system that the universe has created. And it's funny because I don't every now and again, like I'll be, you know, on a call and have some energy kind of hop out. So the Sacred Heart of Mary is definitely
Ah,
she's kind of, you know, that little heart energy she's got going. I don't know. She wanted to say hi.
love it.
Yeah, we'll let her say hi. The dog, the Mary candle.
Yeah, no, it's amazing work that you do, and I love the different tools that you use and how you guide people. And like Robin said, shed some light on it.net is where you can go and schedule a session. And she's also on Spiritual CFO on Instagram. And where else do you have?
TikTok and Facebook. I don't go on Facebook a ton right now, but is there another platform that I'm forgetting?
Do you have
Oh, and
anything on
YouTube.
YouTube? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
lots of platforms for you to check out, see her work. And she also does stuff, if you check out on Instagram, she does stuff throughout the month on Eventbrite, correct?
I do. I'm, you know, because I'm always shifting and kind of, yeah, just be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout because different stuff pops up. So that's where sometimes she has a lot and maybe other times not so much, but there's always content coming out and there's different opportunities to engage with her, check out her website, and get a session. So lots of good ways to feel empowered around your business and to check your limiting beliefs. So is there
Yeah.
any last things you want to share with us, Robin?
I love getting questions from people. So if y'all have any specific questions about money or about, you know, just any wounding that you have, please feel free to connect with me and ask. and I love to hear like what people are needing support with, because I feel like that's a beautiful way to kind of tune into, right, like what spirit is wanting to come forward, because we do have those themes, right? As guides, as healers, we tend to have those themes that come up with our clients. So I love to hear what y'all are working through, what you're struggling with. Yeah, and just see how I can support you. So thank you guys for joining us. It was lovely to chat. Oh, sorry.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll have more fun coming out, more conversations, and more interesting information around the work we do and the information coming through. So thank you for joining us within the flow, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
I can see the stars align, dance around the moon every night. And now my eyes are open wide, and the sky has never looked so bright. And I don't need to see the road to believe